David's younger brother Peter has researched a book on Suchet, and David has arranged to meet him on the banks of the Serpentine in London's Hyde Park, where their grandfather took one of his earliest photographs back in 1923.
I'd say, David, that the kids caught bathing naked in the Serpentine, together with the shot he took at the Siege of Sydney Street when Churchill was Home Secretary, arguably his two most iconic images.
I mean, he wouldn't have used this camera, his camera,
no.
Because this is 1954.
No, that's too late.
Yeah.
That's too modern.
About here, do you reckon?
I would say that's where the shot was taken.
Ready?
Yep.
Gonna run?
No, I'm not taking my clothes off for you.
Shall I take it, just for the old time's sake?
Go on. A scoop.
The son of Jewish émigré parents, Suchet was one of the very first paparazzi photographers. He captured some of the most iconic characters of the early 20th century, including the first picture of Edward, Prince of Wales, with Mrs. Simpson. And having a photographer around was great for the family album.
I want to show you this extraordinary picture. There's Jimmy.
Oh, my goodness.
And you're absolutely rapt with attention.
I idolised him. But he was the closest man and influence on my life, the biggest influence on my life of any man.
Yeah.
David grew up with Jimmy, so learnt a lot about his life and work. But he knows very little about Jimmy's parents. Jimmy's father was also a photographer.
Here, David, is a wonderful shot of Jimmy's parents, Arnold and Amelie. Arnold started his photographic career running a studio in Paris before coming to this country in, what, 1870s, 1880s?
How early is that?
Oh, this was in the very, very early days of photography.
I thought that he had a studio called the Eiffel Tower Studios in Paris. But in fact, they weren't French, were they?
I always thought they were, but how they
Were they born in France?
That I don't know.
We don't, do we?
They certainly emigrated to this country from Paris. But look at this. This is the Tower Bridge Photographic Studio director, A. Jarchi.
Jarchi?
With a Y.
So it's not Suchet with an E?
J-A-R-C-H-Y. Jimmy changed it.
Why did he change it?
But why, I have no idea. It's all shrouded in mystery.
Well, the plot thickens, doesn't it? My great-grandfather, Arnold, was Jarchi with a Y. Jimmy, my grandfather, changed that to Suchet with an accent on the E. Brother Peter says they were French. I'm not so sure. So there's obviously family confusion going on here, or people not wanting to know what went on.
Less than a mile downriver from Tower Bridge, after which Arnold named his business, is the site of his first photographic studio in London.
Mr. Webb?
Mr. Suchet.
Here David has arranged to meet historian David Webb.
If you'd like to come through. We think that Arnold Jarchi had his studio on the ground floor, and this represents the site of the studio.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, goodness me. Does this size, the whole size, represent what he would have...
Almost certainly represents
quite
the studio
large.
as far as we... Oh, yes. But then you have to remember that by the 1890s, there would have been arc lights available.
Yes.
There would have been backdrops available, all of which would have needed to be put away into one corner or another.
Was photography sort of a cult or in, or was it... Had it been around long enough to be taken as part of your life?
It had been around long enough to become part of an everyday experience by then, yes.
Photography had been invented in France in the 1820s and had quickly become popular amongst ordinary people wanting to immortalize themselves and the faces of their loved ones. By the 1890s, when Arnold Jarchi was running his business in Union Road, there were well over 300 photographic studios in London alone.
He came over from France,
Yes,
didn't he?
that's right.
Do we know anything about where his studio in Paris might have been and how he worked there?
Not exactly, but there is a reference in the British Journal of Photography to the fact that he actually claims to have been employed by various well-known French studios in Paris in the 1880s.
In Paris?
In
he
Paris.
says, where I have
That's
been
right.
previously employed
as operator and retoucher.
Retoucher, that's
yes.
in the developing.
Yes.
Monsieur Piron, Ladret, Monque, and Panellier.
Yes. So when he arrived in London, he took every effort to emphasise that he was from Paris.
Yes.
To enhance his status in London.
So maybe then he came over here because he thought he could hang his hat on being fashionably French.
On his reputation, indeed. The sort of cachet of French certainly meant something. This is 1895.
Having discovered that Arnold Jarchy did work with established photographers in Paris, David sets off for the French capital in the hope of finding Jarchy's Eiffel Tower studios.
Mesdames et messieurs, bonjour et bienvenue à bord de cette Eurostar.
I'm now tracking down Arnold and Amélie. I'd like to know where he worked. I want to know more about the people he worked with. I mean, there's a great clue here. And I wouldn't have thought this was in any way fabrication. Otherwise, I don't think he would have put it in print. Piron, Ladret, Monque, Panellier. So I know he traded on his Paris French connections. But the more I'm learning about them, I got a feeling something's going on. That was there something they didn't want to talk about? I don't know. That's my sort of dramatic mind at work, I suppose. Maybe it was the Jewishness.
Paris in the 1880s was an exciting place for a photographer to live, with over 400 studios. The famous Eiffel Tower was completed in 1889, built to celebrate the centenary of the French Revolution. But did it also lend its name to Arnold Jarchy's photographic studio? To find out, David has come to the Musée Carnavalet, a museum devoted to the history of Paris. If David's great-grandfather Arnold Jarchy did have a studio here, this is where he'll find proof.
This is a book about photographers in the 19th century in France.
Yes.
So maybe you may find your ancestor there and people he worked with.
Oh, thank you. Wow, I really feel I might be getting somewhere. So J-A-R. Jardin, Jarreau. And then it goes Jobin. Okay. He's not there. Maybe one of these French photographers that he says he worked for. Maybe I should look up them.
The fact that Jarchy's name is not in the book means he didn't have a studio of his own in Paris. David checks the names of the studios of the 4 photographers Arnold worked with as an assistant.
Not mentioned.
But he cannot find any mention of a studio named after Paris's most famous landmark. It seems there was no Eiffel Tower studios.
He was an operator and a retoucher. I don't doubt that that is true. I don't doubt that at all. But I do doubt now whether he ever had a studio here himself. I think he was an opportunist, and he was determined to make something of himself. I think that's what brought him to London and the main chance for him. So I think, you see, when he gets to London, he wants to impress. He wants to say,
in the best possible French accent. But of course I was at the Eiffel Tower studio. It was very good there. And I think knowing us Brits, we could be quite impressed by that foreign accent, that sense of foreignness. I think we like that, something mystique. Yeah. Good for him. I think good for him.